Hey guys, and welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul. We have a special guest here in the studio. This is JJ from ASUS. How you doing, JJ?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking, boss. And
fantastic.
Hello, everybody.
Hi guys. So thanks for coming by today. We have a new series of motherboards, our new series, I guess, of motherboards from ASUS, all featuring the X99 chipset, the socket 2011-3 socket. These are all for Intel's new Haswell E enthusiast class processors.
Yes.
And the board we're looking at today is the X99-E WS from ASUS, and that WS stands for workstation. So here is where I feel like ASUS kind of blends the line here between your consumer grade, your gaming systems, and the workstation class, the enterprise, the folks who are, let's say, building a system that they're going to run a business on, that they need to have full reliability, but also an extremely high amount of performance out of.
Yeah, and I think for this generation, there's actually even a little bit more kind of crossover, because even for the Deluxe series, it actually has Xeon support officially. We've done official support for Tesla and Quadro and Fire Pro and other things. So there's a little bit more kind of gray area as well. But the WS, we still purpose build, I think, with features and functions that really complement the prosumer and the professional target usage market that are going to require certain aspects of expandability, interoperability and compliance, as well as a really focus towards long-term uptime and reliability. Now, it doesn't mean that inherently our other boards aren't equally as reliable, but there's extra work that we go in to really help to extend, I think, the reliability of the platform in very meaningful ways to that target segmentation. But you know, as the case is with, I think, all the boards, while this is target first towards the prosumer and the professional market, SMB, so small business, small medium business, this could equally find a place in a high-end just gaming system or a high-end, you know, productivity system, or people that kind of are in very different types of markets. You know, day traders sometimes are running extensive GPUs for, you know, multiple monitor configurations. We find the WS platform really speaks to actually a lot of different people in a lot of different ways.
All right, so for starters, the CPUs that are going to be available, consumer grade, I should say, at launch, are going to be the 5820K, the 5930K, as well as the 5960X.
Yes.
6-core, 6-core, and 8-core respectively, with twice as many threads when you use hyper-threading. Now, since this is a workstation board, you mentioned that this also applies to the Deluxe, but Xeon support is also included here. So does that also include Ecc Memory Support?
At this time, I would say no.
Okay.
We're still waiting some final information from Intel, but most likely Ecc will only be in compliance for C-series chipsets, which follows the kind of the trend that's happened over the last couple of chipset generations. So while you will officially be able to leverage the CPU on this platform, you won't be able to leverage the Ecc-based aspects of what the Xeon CPU enables.
Okay, and just wanted to clarify that for anyone who's looking into this board, who is looking for that type of thing. And we should also mention ASUS, of course, also has a more dedicated workstation series. Yeah, we will.
We will, of course, when C-series chipsets become available, we will definitely have those solutions for users that absolutely, absolutely have to have ECC-based memory support.
Okay, so apart from that, let's talk about from a little bit higher level. When you're talking about a consumer-grade processor like the K SKUs that are coming out from Intel right now, and a Xeon comparatively, what are some of the distinguishing features between those two of those, and why is the Xeon generally seen so much more as a workstation part than the performance you get from the i7s?
It kind of varies in a couple of different ways. You know, I think the very concise way to kind of look at it tends to be, one is validation, as that CPU is officially utilized in those type of applications and vetted for it. While this doesn't exist on the Haswell E-based platform, but for, let's say, the normal Haswell-based platform, Haswell Refresh, it also has integrated graphics. The actual graphics portion and the driver actually has to go through what's called ISV certification. So it's actually specifically optimized, and then it's also validated for different types of applications like Autodesk or things along those lines. So you actually get specific acceleration and prioritization for those type of clients.
Okay.
ECC is another portion, and then the other big one is going to be multiprocessor support. Xeons are the only CPUs that Intel produces that currently are allowed to allow you to run 2 of those, let's say, on a motherboard, or 3 or 4 of them on a motherboard, should the chipset in the motherboard allow for that. So that's going to be the other big difference.
All right, so moving on from the CPU side of it, hopefully clarified what actually people are going to be considering dropping in here. Other features just of this platform at launch are DDR4 support, of course, and there's a bunch of exciting stuff, especially if you're looking at it from a workstation perspective. And then, of course, the chipset, which is X99, which is providing some cool stuff like 10 full SATA Rev 3 6 gigabits per second port, 6 gigabits per second connections, USB 3.0 support. But all that aside, I think the thing that jumped out at me the most when we were first looking at this board, JJ, was apart from the 40 lanes that you're going to get from, say, a 5960K or a 5960X, or 5930K, I guess, you have a PLX chip in here as well. So like 40 wasn't enough. So what types of configurations as far as add-on cards do you think are actually going to leverage that amount of bandwidth?
I mean, you know, with this type of platform, really our kind of goal is just to be able to enable the most type of permutations for expansion cards. We see it cuts across all kinds of ranges, you know, for the high-end gaming segmentation, while, you know, legitimately you've got more than enough lanes to be able to drive any type of GPU configuration on, let's say, like an R4E in terms of by 4 Crossfire or by 4 SLI. This board can equally also offer that. Where we purposely kind of have this design implementation is more so actually for the different types of usage markets. So for users that might be running 2 high-performance, you know, 8X like LSI RAID controller cards, or you might get professional capture cards. We see users, especially in videography, you know, looking at high-resolution HDMI capture sources. So they might have like 6 HDMI capture cards where they're capturing, you know, uncompressed, you know, 12-bit, you know, video. You know, as you get into 4K too, that's even more bandwidth, right, that you have to jump into. So there's a lot of permutations that I think here, and that's really our goal here, is that whether you're running GPUs for compute, whether you're running GPUs for graphics, whether you need complex storage array support, whatever it might be, we just want to try to give you as much flexibility to enable that type of expansion capability on the board. And so we've gone ahead and done that. We've leveraged, of course, a fantastic layout that you get by enabling, of course, those 40 lanes from the CPU, but then through the inclusion of the multiplexing chip, then we have even more lanes. So that is definitely a focal point on this, and that also then ties into another area that is one of kind of the distinguishing points for the WS board, which is the enhanced option ROM validation. You know, as a user out there in the professional marketplace or a prosumer, you might be buying these expensive add-in devices, and you want to ensure that those devices work. I mean, many times you could be talking $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000 for some of these add-in cards, and many normal motherboards aren't designed to work with these type of devices. So you could put them in, and they could have issues initializing it, affecting the post routines, even maybe sometimes not even booting up. And so we purposely actually test with those type of complex high-end devices that have their own logic and their own option ROMs to be able to make sure that they initialize correctly. And that also goes through for higher-end GPUs that are designed for professional environments, such as Quadro, Tesla, or Fire Pro, Fire GL type of cards.
Yeah, so the testing, validation, making sure that regardless of what you're going to connect to this board, it's going to work. That's very important, particularly in the workstation environment. The other thing, I don't want to say opinion, the impression that I get of this board when I look at it is the word overbuilt comes to mind.
Yes, it's very, very, very highly built.
So again, go back to workstation. You want to make sure everything here is going to last a really long time. So let's talk a little bit about some of the components that you guys have integrated here, particularly when it comes to like power delivery.
So I think, yeah, it ties in. First, aesthetically, kind of complementing the power delivery is you see this massive kind of cooling solution that's built onto the board, right? You've got this ultra large heatsink assembly that goes over the PCH, as well as helps to actually cool the PLX. And then from here, you actually see another heatsink assembly, and then you've got a heatsink assembly here, and you have a heatsink assembly here, and then you've got another heatsink assembly here.
And all connected with heat pipes.
And all connected with heat pipes. So we're really helping to ensure that you have ultra cool, efficient thermal dissipation for the entire board. And this is really important because also what we see in the professional or the prosumer usage market, or once again in the high-end gaming or enthusiast market, is that you have a much higher likelihood to be running your system for a long period of time. You know, so it could be 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours. You know, both of us are into videography, and you guys do tons of video. It's not uncommon to have a system, maybe they're crunching on editing array, you know, rendering or exporting out, and you could be talking, you know, hours on hours as far as the platform doing that.
And
especially if
full
you
load on it at the same time.
Exactly, and especially if you even overclock it, you know, pushing it even further, then you want to be able to adequately ensure that everything is running effectively and cool. And that's also helped by, of course, a huge amount of the VRM work that we've done. From the capacitor side, of course, the board maintains the trend of our previous WS, where we have the 12K rated capacitors, which also have extremely high temperature and extremely low temperature tolerances, while also offering very, very high capacitance, so that ability to reserve and have a high degree of power output capability when drawn on. That's there. We've got those ultra high performance Blackwing chokes. So of course those give us outstanding thermal efficiency, super high amperage output. Overall, they're just amazing inductors, great thermal performance and great power. And then of course the actual driver and the MOSFET power stages that we have on here are super efficient, super high amperage, and just overall kind of perfectly matched. Whether you're looking for very, very high grade of efficiency, or whether you're looking for a very high degree of power output to be able to support overclocking pursuits on the board, to be able to help to ensure long-term stability, you've got that taking care of you in spades. So that aligned with a lot of special design work that we've done on the topology to be able to enhance overclocking capabilities for DRAM, as well as for the ring bus, or what's referred to as the cache ratio, has really been put all into this board, so you're going to get a great OC experience out of this.
Excellent. So and then apart from that, this is an eATX board, so it's, it's a bit wider than a standard ATX. So if you guys are looking into this, just double check a case, make sure it's going to support that.
Yeah, a lot of expansion here, so you know, to be able to give the most flexibility expansion, we've got it a little bit larger. But like you said, you know, generally in this enthusiast space, it shouldn't be that much of an issue. Most of the chassis will fit that without a problem.
So down along the bottom edge and up the side here, we have a lot of, I think, what's extra features, special little knobs and whistles that you guys have added to enhance the performance, or just give you additional features that you might not get with a typical X99 board. So where shall we begin over here? Maybe storage?
Well, I think actually right before we get to the storage, we've got the power, and so this is just like our previous generation, actually, WS board. So we've got the ProCool power design implementation. So not only for the CPU, but for the 24-pin, but also for the supplemental PCI Express, we actually use a fully molded thicker base gauge connection, and this actually is very important for this type of platform where there's going to be a very high level of current pull, and you want to help to not only reduce contact temperature but improve efficiency. So that is actually one point that's actually there on the board that is critical to, I think, to the overall operation, and it's a design touch that we put on WS to help to ensure superior reliability.
Very nice.
But when we move into the storage array, you can see that you're pretty stacked here. So from right here from the top, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So 12 serial ATA ports on the board. I mean, for storage enthusiasts, that's pretty much as good as it gets right now on a desktop or enthusiast class motherboard. But we are supporting pretty much every spec that you could want on here. So outside of the traditional SATA 6G on here, if we move down, these ones, which are these 4 SATA 6G, are also serial ATA Express.
Okay.
So you have the ability to support the next generation of SATA Express-based devices and the higher throughput that they offer, as well as the better architecture and native NVMe support once those controllers come to market. And then directly below that, I know for you, you're a big fan of M.2 based solutions, so we also have that offered here on the board as well. So all the way around, when you then tie that in also, of course, with a wide range of PCIe slot expansion and the fact that X99 has RST or option ROM driver support for native PCIe bootable solutions, you pretty much can run any type of storage device on this unit.
Excellent. So all the storage you could possibly need, and again, I got to compliment you on the M.2 placement down there. Even if you had one or even a couple graphics cards installed here, I think you could still easily
you could access it and not really impact your system configuration. And lastly, touching down here on the storage note, while people don't generally use it as a primary storage point, generally it's expansion kind of like USB. This board also does fully support our Thunderbolt EX2 expansion card. So if you want Thunderbolt, that fastest I/O standard, you can go ahead and drop in that card, plug it in there, and bam, you're good to go.
That's been something that's difficult to get on X99.
Yeah, on X99 it was a no-go. You just did not have Thunderbolt. You only had that on the mainstream enthusiast space. Now, I think moving beyond, of course, storage, fan connectivity I think is extremely important in a kind of professional or an enthusiast kind of content creation oriented platform or high-end gaming based platform. So this board's got 6 fan headers, and just like our entire range of actually Z97, X99 enthusiast boards, every single header supports 3-pin and 4-pin control. It's not just plugging it in there and having that control. We can output to DC mode or PWM mode. Gives you better granularity and control both in the UEFI and in the operating system. On top of that, every single header has unique mappable input sources. So that means like the chassis fan header doesn't have to just respond to the CPU. We can have it respond to the VRM, to the motherboard, to the PCH, to different temperature points. So continuing on with the fan control functionality, here, as we noted, we've got all those 6 fan headers. They have this full DC and PWM output control. We can map multiple temperature input sources. You got the fan calibration ability so that we can actually go ahead and sense what the minimum and maximum RPM fan curves. And then extending upon that, for this generation, we've also developed this fan hub extension module. So that can plug into the board and give you actually an additional 3 fan headers. So that's an awesome level of granularity control, but we kind of already had that previously because you could set the board into PWM mode on any header and then be able to put like a PWM fan splitter cable and then, you know, put out multiple multiple fans per every single header. The great thing is that these are truly transparent, so the motherboard sees this essentially as an additional full controllable set of fans. So you have 9 fans in total that can be controlled, and there's 3 additional temperature input sources that you can go ahead and map anywhere you want. So this is an example right here of a thermistor kind of cable or thermal couple, and you can go ahead and, let's say, put that on the back of your GPU. You could put it in the chassis, you could put it on top of your storage array, wherever you want, and vice versa. Whether you want these temperature input sources to be mappable to the onboard fan headers or mappable to these, you can have that. And even if you want to have this simply work as just like a PWM splitter board, you could also do that by just plugging an input cable here to then the chassis fan header, and then setting it to PWM output, and then all those additional fans would go ahead and mirror that same functionality. So you can imagine, like, if you're running like a water cooling solution, you got like 3 or 4 fans. That's a perfect type of example where, you know, running like a splitter would really complement that, because you want all the fans to conditionally follow the same curve.
Excellent. So tons of fan support here, and then if you wanted to go even beyond that, like you were saying, since you've got PWM, a proper PWM fan splitter, and then you could pretty much expand that out as many as you want.
Yeah, per every single header. I mean, it's just an insane level of granularity and control. So continuing on with that, of course, the board's got tons of additional hardware specification, and something that's new is that traditionally the WS hasn't always had our isolated sound design, but this board does actually get our isolated audio design in Crystal Sound 2.0. So we have the segmentation between the actual PCB layers from the actual audio codec to the rest of the board, so that helps us to achieve the full operating specification for the codec. Got an operational amplifier. The only kind of main difference will be is that we don't incorporate the audio grade capacitors here. We still maintain the 12K rated capacitors to be able to maintain the full kind of longest term reliability. But as a whole, you still get an improvement in terms of the sound because of the isolation, the DTS Ultra 2 PC package with the optimization for in-ear monitors, headphones, desktop speakers, plus the operational amplifier. Awesome. But I think moving beyond that, we've got the I/O, which I think is always an interesting point for a lot of people. And if we take a look there, you're pretty much packed to the gills. You know, if we take a look at the top, we've got USB BIOS flashback. So if you wanted to be able to go ahead and update the UEFI chip, which is non-soldered, it's a socketable, removable chip. No CPU, no memory, no graphics card, just standby power. You can go ahead and update and recover the chip. You're good to go. You've also got the Q code logger. So this is great for complex systems where you got it up and running. Maybe you run into an issue where the system's having a problem posting. You can go ahead and essentially dump the entire post routine and all that debugging information to a flash drive, and then you can put it on another system. You can see specifically where the points of initialization are occurring. And that allows you to know, oh, hey, memory or this slot is having the problem. I can go in and do that. It's a much easier troubleshooting process than sometimes looking at like a debug code and not knowing what it is. From there, you can see we've got 2 Esata ports, which, while for most enthusiasts probably is not an actively utilized standard, is still utilized in the SMB and the SOHO market, especially because Esata was very popular for like external storage enclosures from like companies like Sans Digital and things like that. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 USB 3 ports. And on top of that, the board has 2 internal USB 3 headers, so that's a total of 14 USB 3 on the board. And just like our deluxe motherboard, an important note is that we also still maintain a discrete AS Media 1042A controller. That's important because some people sometimes always think that the Intel-based controllers are better, but it's important to keep in mind that a discrete controller always has ensured throughput regardless of however you configure your system, as opposed to hub solutions have reduced throughput as you saturate the hub. In addition to that, the what's called PID compatibility is actually better generally on the AS Media controller than even the Intel controller. This is important for a wide range of storage devices where actually we find we can get better performance because of the better driver support that exists for that controller. For the USB 3 as a whole as well, of course, we maintain USB Charger Plus, so you can quick charge things like your smartphones or your tablets. USB 3 Boost to improve performance for storage devices. We've got 2 Intel Gigabit Ethernet ports, plus server-grade NIC implementation, allowing you to have support for server-grade operating systems and all the goodness that comes with the Intel ProSet management software. You also got the TurboLAN software, so if you want to do packet priority control and tuning for things like gaming or for downloading or for serving, for different aspects, that's all available to you.
Is teaming available there too?
You can also do teaming, so you can incorporate failover support. You got a lot of flexibility there. And then when we drop down, of course, we've got the multi-channel audio, which is linked into the Crystal Sound 2.0. And of course, you got the Toslink optical out, should you want to be able to go ahead and output audio to like a receiver, like a soundbar or something along those lines.
Excellent. So I like the bit of extra attention actually for audio in this particular generation. That's something that I think people use with workstations, but often it's left kind of sidelined.
Yeah, well, we've actually actually found is that most users will actually usually end up buying a sound card anyways, because a lot of times when you're editing, you know, you're actually critically listening. You're looking at what you're actually editing. You want to be able to listen back to music. We see editors listening to music while they're maybe doing editing, whether it's photos or videos like that. So we just felt in suit it was a better pursuit to also be able to improve the audio and give them an improvement in that respect.
Excellent. So I really like all the stuff that you guys have integrated into this motherboard. And just like with every video we do with you, I know there's still more.
Yeah, I think the main point I think that we just haven't covered is that the WS series maintains the full AI Suite 3 and 5-way optimization suite.
That's true.
So I think that's a very important point, because for users out there that are looking to get that best-in-class auto overclocking experience and tuning experience, we have that built in. So there's a lot more information that'll be out there on that, but if you're essentially looking for a simplified solution that is specific to your CPU, your cooling, your memory, your power supply, that comes enabled with this board. So you can go ahead and get it in there, click a button, dynamically auto overclock your system. And with these K-series CPU parts, you know, the entry-level ones being at least about 4 gigahertz, best CPUs going up to 4.6. It's an easy way to be able to improve the performance for your system for whatever focus you're going on. You throw in the fan control functionality, Fan Expert 3, that automatically calibrates all that, and tons more that we have built into the AI Suite and the 5-way optimization. Really great balance between firmware, software to hardware implementation.
Excellent. And I wanted to make one last point about the aesthetics of this particular motherboard, because often workstation boards, server boards in particular, they don't always look that nice. I told JJ earlier, this reminds me of like the new Batmobile, because it has that kind of sleek design, but it also looks tough. It looks like it's out there to get the job done.
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely. So
what I'm interested to hear from you guys, some feedback, of course. JJ, guarantee, is going to be taking a look at some of the comments down below. So let us know what you think of this board. I want to know. Just go crazy and think of like the craziest implementation of like hardware that you could connect up here for like a combination video editing, like fluid dynamic simulation. Just go crazy. Let us know what you guys think and what you think you could install and connect to this motherboard for like the highest end workstation possible. Let us know that in the comments, as well as any questions you have for JJ. Don't forget to hit the like button while you're down there. Let us know if you enjoyed this video and all of the fantastic information that JJ brings every time he stops by. So speaking of which, thank you so much for coming by today, JJ. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll have more coverage of the X99 launch, as well as other X99 motherboards from ASUS, such as the ROG series, as well as their mainstream series, also available. So check those out. We'll see you all very soon.